Our discussion is on African traditions and marriage. And I'm trying to take the time. I've looked through the notes, through the manual, but I'm also trying to instead of following the manual, I'm trying to take the opportunity to compare what I expect the process of wedding and marriage for a traditional marriage and for the Christian marriage. I'm trying to compare the two together. But I want us to start where we should start. Since we are all Christians, that's why we have come to a Christian meeting, we should be guided by God's word. Genesis chapter 2, verse 20 says, "So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals, but for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with the flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man.' That is why a man leaves his father and mother, and he is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame." I'll be emphasizing the fact that the Old Testament marriages are not ideal. And don't quote me, quote Jesus. Jesus told them, no, don't copy your type of marriages and the marriage of the Old Testament. That was not God's intention. Something went wrong. That's why you have Solomon with 1,000 women. It was not God's intention at the beginning. So if you want to see a biblical marriage, you must go back to the book of Genesis and look at a few things that come right at the beginning. That if you are going to call your marriage a biblical marriage, number one, you must accept the headship of the man for the home. Because the woman is being called a suitable helper for the man. And that is what a Christian marriage is. It cannot be a Christian marriage when the woman is the head of the family. And God does not consult us. That's what he says. That the person being looked for to be with Adam is a helper that is suitable. And I think that's the first thing you need to understand. And number two, you need to understand that wives or husbands come from God. Look at verse 22. He brought her to the man. That means you should not marry someone whom God has not brought your way. I know that's not my topic today, but I'm just talking about what's a Christian marriage. In a traditional marriage, your parents can bring a girl to you, or your clan can bring a girl to you. But in a Christian marriage, you want God to bring her to you. And I think that will be very important. I wrote a book that's meant for the premarital class called Finding a Life Partner. If you get a copy, I would recommend you pick it. And in the book, I emphasize you do not choose a life partner. You find God's choice. So that the woman you are going to marry and the man you are going to marry is not your choice. It's God's choice. All you have discovered is to find out from God. Is this the person you want? And if he talks to you, now you say that this girl is God's choice for me. So even if there are trouble in marriage later, you don't bother with your spouse. You ask God, why did you give me somebody like that? And the other thing I want you to see is to see in verse 24 that there are several things that have to happen before you can get married. Number one, you are not allowed to get married. I'll be coming back to this. You are not allowed to get married when you are still in your parents' home. You cannot bring a girl to your mother's house. This is scripture. A man shall leave, then get united to a wife. A man must leave his father and mother. So it's important to understand that before marriage can happen, a man must be somebody who can stand on his own. He has a house of his own. He has money of his own. He can make decisions on his own. You cannot bring a girl into your parents' marriage or into their home. It's a prerequisite before you can get married. Similarly, the girl, you cannot get married and continue staying in your mother's house. You need to create a new home. Marriage sets up a new home. So there will be now 3 homes. There have been 2 homes. The home of the girl, the home of the boy. Now there will be a 3rd home. The home of the boy and girl who have now gotten married. And the other thing I want to emphasize in this introduction is, again, in verse 25, in a biblical marriage, both are naked. And they're not ashamed of being naked. Both are naked. So that in a Christian marriage, you have to be, the man must be knowledgeable. You know, for example, if you are at this level, and there is a child, if you're a Kikuyu, there's a child you got when you're in Form 3, and your boyfriend does not know, and you are getting married, then you're not being naked. Before the wedding, you need to become naked to tell your husband all about you, so that he should not feel after the wedding, you tricked me. I didn't know. Marriage is transparency, being open. That's not traditional marriage. That is Christian marriage. And there are boys who are also like that. Like if you are a lawyer, you have some children somewhere, you got in Form 2, and then you have not told your wife. I'm only giving an example. They were naked to each other. And I think that will be very, very, very important for you to understand. That is a biblical marriage. Please understand what Jesus is saying in Matthew 19:8. Jesus said that about the state of marriage then and in the Old Testament was not ideal. So he said, Jesus replied, Moses permitted you to divorce your wife because your hearts were hard. But it was not this way from the beginning. In other words, don't tell me that you want to keep to the Old Testament standards, to have a marriage like the one of David, or to have a marriage like the one of Abraham. No. Go back to the book of Genesis. So can you see, right in the New Testament, traditions on marriage that the Jews were following. Jesus challenged them. And there is no difference. If you're a lawyer, the traditions of the lawyer, just like the traditions of the Jews were challenged, are also going to be challenged. We will look at various traditions, African traditions, comparing them with the scriptures. One of the traditions that is there is that you get married to a clan, and that means that if your husband died, you still are part of that clan. One of the men in that clan inherits you. In Kikuyu we call it Wodabio. You are cleansed, because when death has come to your home, you are now unholy. The only way you can become a holy woman again is for a man to sleep with you. That's the Kikuyu. It happens to be the Luo belief. It happens to the Luya belief. It was the Old Testament belief in the Old Testament. But Jesus comes and changes all of that. You know, in a traditional marriage, once you pay the dowry, the clan owns that woman for the rest of her life. That's a critical thing you need to understand, that in the New Testament, it is reversed. Just look at 1 Corinthians 7:39. What, and I don't have the reading, but what it says is that if your husband dies, you are free to marry anyone as long as he is in the Lord. What does that mean? That when your husband is dead, marriage ends. You are now a free woman. You are a free man. Marriage is dissolved by death. And you have no obligation to your husband's clan at all. You are free to marry anyone. The only condition is marriage between Christian and Christians is not allowed. So I hope your girlfriend is born again and you are sure. Because they are being told you can marry anyone, but they must be in the Lord. If you're a Christian, needs to be understood by your brothers that you have a biblical marriage, not a traditional marriage. And that's why the wedding process has to be checked. Because you can't later in marriage refuse traditions. Then you followed them during the process. And those traditions are the ones you say that once you are married, now you must of necessity be taken over, be inherited. You are free to stay single after your husband has died, but you're also free to marry anyone. And that introduces the trouble about dowry, because dowry assumes you are buying a woman. So what happens to your money if the husband dies? You know, Christian marriage is not a trade. So it's right from that past, you can see Paul assumed there no dowry had been paid. That's why she is free to marry anyone. Dowry cannot buy a Christian wife. If you are involved in dowry, you are not involved in a Christian marriage. You are involved in a traditional marriage. Traditional marriage, according to the beliefs of the traditions, your marriage cannot be blessed if you steal the girl. So you must pay dowry for you to get blessings. That's why it is important to understand the difference between traditional marriage and a Christian marriage. In a traditional marriage, dowry is a must. But a Christian marriage is different. A wife must never be regarded as property in a Christian marriage that was bought. It has nothing to do with goats that your husband pays. In a Christian marriage, my brother, those who are already married and you have a daughter, are not up for sale. You cannot call yourself a Christian man and you are pricing your daughter that I will get money out of her. That's not New Testament theology. You can find it in the Old Testament. You can't find it in the New Testament. And you know, you go through the New Testament, the Gospels talk about marriage, but not about dowry. The letters of Peter and Paul talk about marriage, but not about dowry. The Revelation talks about marriage, but not about dowry. Dowry is an Old Testament concept. Christians are not involved in dowry. And I want to spend a bit of time on this topic. In a Christian marriage, according to 1 Corinthians 7:9, death separates a couple. In a traditional marriage, dowry unites a couple and makes a woman become part of the clan. And as soon as your husband has died in a Christian marriage, we have just seen that you don't have to remain in the clan. You can marry anyone. So I hope you now see traditional marriage is very different from a Christian marriage in what happens to you later in marriage. So I want to ask you, if you go and buy your wife, are you then accepting that if you died, your brothers can take her over? Why are you involved in paying dowry? Is it so that she can belong to a clan? And especially some of you are you involving your uncles to give you money to pay dowry. That is a traditional requirement. Once you are involved in it, it will need to be clear that your wife can then be taken over, and you will not be there to defend. They will remind you, we paid money for you. You know, that's the first problem I wanted to emphasize about dowry. That Jesus brings a new thing in marriage. But you see, there's another problem. Dowry is a religious process with itemized items. If you go to any tribe, they tell you this is what we require. No item is on that list that is just money. It's supposed to have a reason. Those reasons have to do with beliefs. If you don't have those beliefs, why are you asking people, oh, we have come, we want your daughter, and please tell us what we need to pay? You'll not be just paying money. You'll also be getting involved in those beliefs. Some of the ingredients of what you are supposed to pay as dowry have questionable beliefs behind them. Like you are told to bring a crate of beer or bring a lorry of beer for your in-laws. Why? The belief behind it is the alcohol will give the saliva so that they can bless you. Because a number of tribes believe that for you to be blessed, they pour some saliva. In Kikuyus, actually you pour it on the chest of the father of the girl. But that is true then. But in us, you don't require any alcohol as Christians. Why? You believe in prayer. You know that your parents do not have blessings of their own. So what you want is for your parents to pray for you to be blessed. Something else they normally say is, when this child was growing up, this happened to the mother, we are charging you a penalty. Surely, you do not have you are not trading for the girl. There are no penalties to pay. You know, like the mother fell when he was looking after this, so you need a goat to lift her up. Why do you need to do it? Because that's what our traditions say. Another one says, our ancestors demanded for girls from our clan. This is what you do. Those are dead ancestors. You are getting yourself involved in ancestral worship. But let me go to my third point about dowry. Dowry assumes that that the girl is coming to be labor in the boy's home. Wife is not additional labor to the boy's father. In this current situation, traditional belief about marriage is that when a man brings in a girl to marry, now the girl becomes part of the family of the husband, and she is now part of the labor force. They used to stay in the same homestead. The husband and wife will stay in the same homestead as the father-in-law of the girl, meaning that you are helping the woman will be helping the man's parents. You will hear in a Kikuyu wedding, the mother-in-law being told, you now got somebody to help you get water. So, in a Kikuyu traditional marriage, you are not just there to help your husband. You are brought to help his mother. But we have just read with you in Genesis that the girl is not coming to be the helper of the parents of the boy. She's a helper of the man. Can you see clearly that in a traditional marriage, dowry made sense? Because the benefits the mother of the boy is getting and the father, surely, shouldn't they compensate the parents of the girl? Traditionally, people thinking that a wife is a helper of the family, of the husband, is a justification for dowry. One of the fears of the girl becoming part of the marriage of the father-in-law is that he now can order around, and that happens. You give order to your son. You also give orders to his wife. The parents are the ones who are being helped in a traditional marriage, so it's a right. They have a right to control. So, but in the process, you find there is a lot of conflict, what we call in-law problems, between your wife and your mother, or even your father. The trouble is because of sometimes the age gap. You grew up in another home. You have a different culture. These people don't even love you. There's no love relationship. It is question of you are an in-law. And the lady cannot be able to understand why there's so much collision. So you need to understand clearly the dowry had a meaning traditionally. It's no longer there. Look at another thing altogether. The Bible says a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. If this dowry is so that you bring a wife to your home, will you still be obeying the scriptures that tell you to set a different home? Unless a man obeys the scriptures and physically moves away from his parents' compound, he is setting up trouble in his marriage. And you know that in the rural area happens quite a bit. Those in town have an advantage that they stay away from their parents. But the dowry idea is an idea of buying a wife for your parents. But one of the other thing, I'm going through various reasons The other thing why even Christians are paying dowry is because, if you don't, you will get a curse. Some people believe that if you don't pay dowry, there will be problems in your marriage. Then you'll never settle in your marriage until you pay the dowry. Your husband can be the sweetest guy you know, but when you believe the spirits of the dead are requiring you to pay dowry, you will never enjoy your marriage. You will never be at peace. But do you believe that? Where in the scriptures is dowry required for a Christian marriage? Why are you paying dowry? Why are you paying dowry? We don't believe the blessings come from there. One of the things that is happening now in Mount Kenya area is something they are calling dhirewagomi, paying the debts of the ancestors. So that if your grandfather did not pay in our dowry, the spirits of the dead are complaining. And when they complain, your own child gets sick. If you want your child to get well, they cannot get well in hospital. So you must go back and pay dowry for your grandmother or for your parents if your father is dead. And if he is alive and doesn't have money, you as a son must go to pay, because there will be no blessing, there will be a curse until you pay the dowry. So dowry is no longer just a gift. It's not a joke. It has a traditional religious consequence. Another thing people pay dowry for, they pay for a childbearing machine. In other words, your wife. You can't get a child unless you get a wife. So the wife is the one to pay the child. So what are you doing? In paying dowry, you are buying a childbearing machine. You pay to marry a girl. The reason is you want to continue the lineage of your parents. That's why, especially if you cannot get a boy, it will be good. That meant if the girl you have married does not get a child, the traditional religion means that girl has to be returned back to the parents, just like a machine. If it can't work, you return it back to the seller. Culture allowed you to return her back to her parents and to get back your dowry. I know that among the Kikuyus. So you need to understand it's a trade for paying for the child. Now, if you believe that, what happens if the Lord does not bless you with a child? It means that your marriage will not last. Christian marriage is complete with or without babies. I hope it will be covered by somebody. But saying dowry, you are paying so that you can get a child. No. If you buy a machine with guarantee, it doesn't do what you wanted it to do, you can return it. Wife is not a property to be bought. So I'm going through all this to show you that there was a proper good reason for traditionally dowry was important. I support it. But the moment you became a Christian, your belief system has changed. So it will be difficult for you to get involved in dowry. And I think that will be very, very important. Children were very critical in the traditional system. And people married in order to get children. But if you have become a Christian, you marry a helper. And the two of you are complete, with or without a child, like I said. Your children are never mentioned in making your marriage complete. Unlike the traditional belief about children in marriage. In a Christian marriage, you can enjoy your marriage with or without children. Because the biblical idea is your woman, your wife, is coming to remove loneliness. That she can do whether she gets a child or not. Your woman is coming to give you company. And that she can give you even if she has no child. And when you talk about her becoming a helper, that will be adequate. So, one of the major reasons for marrying is no longer now a Christian requirement. And that does not mean we don't want children. But we are saying marriage is complete even without children. It's also the responsibility of the woman both to bear the child and also bring up the children. So what are you paying for? Not just a childbearing machine, but somebody to look after your children. The man was not, in most traditions, the man was not supposed to look after the child until the child was old enough to go to the man's house. It is the work of the child, the mother, to look after, struggle with the baby. If your mother saw you holding a baby, they will think, wow, my son is becoming feminine. But in a Christian marriage, we are with you through the pregnancy, we are with you in childbirth, we are with you as you bring up the baby. So we are not asking you to be the one who brings up the child on your own. Both the man and the woman are expected to look after their babies right from the maternity. There are certain things, obviously, the man cannot do, but there are many others he can do. Let's give an example, breastfeeding. The woman has to do it on her own. But there are many other things the man can do, like changing nappies. So you need to understand, traditionally, you pay dowry because there will be somebody to look after your children. But in a Christian marriage, you know that you bring up the child together. So, finally, we were increasing the population of the clan. The wife belongs to the clan. But the Bible is clear. Your wife is your wife, not your clan's property. In a Christian marriage, we have seen with you in the scriptures, you must leave your clan to set up a new home. And you not just leave your clan, you even leave your father and mother. In a traditional marriage, you came from your family and you came to belong to the girl came from her family and she came to belong to the husband's clan. And because you now belong to the new clan, the whole clan participated in paying dowry. So that's why people do a fundraising for all the uncles to give you money to buy. After all, they are getting a wife. That's not a biblical idea. In fact, the Kikuyus' word for marrying is I bought you. So the word for marriage is he bought. That's not a biblical concept at all. And I think that I have covered that quite a bit. But 1 Corinthians 7:9 is what needs to give you the thing, that in dowry payment, you are gaining a wife who can be inherited. However, having said this, and I'll repeat it later, let me say clearly, nothing in what I'm saying is discouraging going to your girl, the parents of your girl with a gift. Christianity is very clear on generosity. Surely, if you are going to ask the father of your girlfriend to give you her hand in marriage, why should you go empty-handed? It's not biblical. It's not Christian at all. You should not go empty-handed. The only thing is, when you give that gift, please don't call it dowry. You know, the other day, a friend of mine was taking the son of his friend to seek the hand of marriage. When he did there, the parents of the girl were ready with written. Now people are very progressive. They even write down the requirements. And they were just about to give the requirements. My brother, who is my friend, who was a spokesman, said, "Please don't bother giving us. We are Christians. We do not intend to follow your traditions. We have come with a gift, and what you do with that gift, we don't want to know. We don't want to get involved. We are begging you, please, treat us as Christians. We will give a gift. Please don't call it dowry." The owners of the home said, "No, you cannot come to rule us in our own home." Said, "We are not ruling you. We are begging you." It went on like that until somebody from the girl side said, "Can't you go outside and discuss this matter again?" Then my friend, the spokesman, said, "Not necessary. Before we came here, we were clear that we were coming as Christians. We have a gift. We don't have dowry. So maybe we should go." The man said, "Maybe we should go outside ourselves." My friend said, "If you want, that's okay." So actually, the owners of the home are the one who went outside. When they were outside, they said, "These people want to rule us." And obviously, some of the people don't even care, even if the discussions break. You can see I'm avoiding the word negotiations. Christians don't go for marriage negotiations. They go for marriage relationship building. You want to know the parents of the girl to create a friendship and relationship. In USA, a Cristiano mathiaga odhoni, matithiaga ruracio. You don't go for dowry. You go for relationship. And that's what my friend was emphasizing. Anyway, when they were outside, it sounded like people were ready to break up the discussions. The father of the girl realized he is on his own. So when they came back, the spokesman was dethroned. So the father of the girl talked and said, I can see you are very serious about how you want this process to go. Can you repeat? What do you actually want? Said, we have an envelope here. The envelope actually had a banker's check. These days you don't carry cash. Otherwise the thieves will arrive that night. We have an envelope here. We really want you to accept it. And please, we are not being rude. We don't believe in the things and the listings. So we want you to accept the thing. So the father said, bring it. When he brought it, they had brought more than 500,000 shillings. The gift was more than 500,000 shillings. You could see the eyes of the father of the girl open up. All these negotiations, they did not necessarily want more than 300,000. But now the money they are getting as a gift is double the dowry. Because people think that when you give a gift, it will be smaller than the dowry. No. What we are removing is our beliefs. It's what we are dealing with. We are not supporting being mean. Give whatever it is you can give because you are being generous. And there's nothing wrong with being generous. After all, some of that money is used for preparation of your wedding. Why would you not want to support? So I think it needs to be understood clearly. We are not against gifts. We are talking about those beliefs behind the various itemized things. One of the things another tradition which we have to deal with as we get married is the issue of the parents directing the new home. In a traditional marriage, the mother will be looking after the girls, the father will be looking after the mentoring the boys, but sometimes the boy reaches a level where it becomes a teenager. He's now more important than the mother. That's what the traditions believe. Then he cannot really be seen to be obeying the mother. That's what happens to the boys once they are circumcised. They feel like they are now bigger than their own mothers. You find that when a boy who is only 13, these days they are getting up very early, 14. Now he can't even take orders of the mother or even the teacher in high school. They're having difficulty because they were brought up badly to believe that because you are circumcised, your mother is not as important than a woman. Kikuyus put it in a very bad language. They say, Gia tumia na ihe yeteka gyokiarara. There is a belief that women and uncircumcised boys should not be taken seriously. That is a belief that is not Christian at all. In a Christian marriage, you will have to continue respecting your mother. Honor your father and mother is a commandment. But when you create a new home, you will be the head of the new home. But that does not allow you to respect your parents. By the time you are in this home, you must have been an adult for you to get married. It will be important to understand that circumcision alone does not make you an adult. You need to grow to where you can be independent. And then you leave home, and from then onwards, you are regarded as an adult. And the scriptures are clear. Adults are not required to obey other adults. There is nothing in the Bible that requires a married man to obey his father and mother. The word used in the Bible is honor them, not obey them. When in the book of Ephesians, the Bible is talking about obedience, it addresses itself correctly. It says, children, obey your mother and father. When you become an adult, you discuss with your parents. Your parents no longer are instructors. They are now advisors. So as you go into this, I'm discussing this tradition because it be important for it to be agreed. that your parents need to understand as soon as you are married, they cannot direct your home, which is required traditionally, but not in a Christian marriage. So I'll conclude this matter by saying, you therefore do not need to pay dowry. We talked about childbearing. You have talked about getting a cook. Maybe that's one of the reasons you are marrying. But now both of us can help in the kitchen. We talked about getting water. Sometimes now these days water is even is in your bedroom. It's everywhere. That's why they paid dowry those days. You know, I have said as I'm concluding this issue of dowry, my father and my mother should be very keen to pay for the new labor that is coming to them. That's why dowry was paid to the parents of the girl, so that they are losing. They no longer have the labor. But now in the new situation, both the parents of the girl lose and the parents of the boy lose. So if the parents of the girl have to be refunded, even the parents of the boy have to be refunded, because both of them are losing as they go to a new home. That's what makes it difficult to understand anybody insisting on paying dowry or demanding dowry, when two of them are losing if you are going to have a Christian home. You know, traditionally it was believed that women are marrying like commodities. We don't believe that in Christianity. You are not paying a deposit in order to get a wife. In a Christian marriage, the Christian marriage is for life. No divorce is allowed. So there is no time you are expecting to be trading. The girl you are marrying is not additional. Remember, we have seen she is the helper of the husband, not the helper of the parents. And you stay with her for better, for worse, whether she gets a child or does not get a child. You stay with her when she is strong. You stay with her when she is sick. The same way for the girl. You must stay with the man now that he is strong. If there is an accident and he clearly can't look after himself, you still have to stay with the man. Divorce is not an option. So dowry becomes quite a problem. So in a Christian marriage, you only belong to your husband, not to the clan. The marriage will end the day your husband dies. But you still continue respecting your parents, respecting the girl's parents, even after you create the new home. By the way, are you aware that in the Old Testament, not everybody paid dowry? I want to give you the example of Eliezer going for a wife for Isaac. He says in Genesis 24, verse 33, I'll not eat until I have told you what I have to say. He is so keen to be sure whether he's getting a wife that he wants to explain the whole thing before eating. He shared with Bethuel, Rebecca's father, and everybody else present his experience from the time he started his journey to the time he met Rebecca. When they heard the whole story, they said, hey, this is from the Lord. You can have the girl. Verse 50. As soon as he was now assured he has a girl, he went outside, took gifts, and gave the gifts to Rebecca and her family. Obviously, you know that's why I'm supporting gift. You can see clearly, he was not asked for any dowry, but he still gave a gift. Dowry is the money demanded by the father of the girl. Gift is the money given freely by choice for the person that are coming to visit. And if you know that, then you know in Abraham, and unfortunately this is the one they like using in dowry negotiations. It is not. Just go and read Genesis 24 again. There was no dowry paid. There were only gifts exchanged. We have come out to clear it to a conclusion. Dowry is not a source of blessings. Your parents, the parents of the girl can bless you with or without dowry. There's a biblical requirement that you pay. There's no biblical requirement that you pay dowry for your marriage to be blessed. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with exchanging the gifts. There could be something wrong with agreeing to a price on a girl. Hey, we want 2 million, But if whatever you have, give us. You can go with your wedding. You will pay slowly. That means you have put a price on your wife. It will affect your marriage. Every time she does not cook well, you remember the debt you have not yet cleared. That's not something. You should not accept a debt. You should not accept as a girl to be on debt, to be given on loan. That's not to be right. You know, wife is a gift from God, not some property to be earned. Proverbs 18:22 says, "He who finds a wife finds what is good, and receives favor from the Lord." Finds a wife, finds what is good, and it is a favor from the Lord. I think it will be important to understand that your wife is a gift from God. You can't buy, a gift you can't buy. Biblically, the two are one, and they co-own everything. So not one owning the other. These days, the wife and the husband own everything together. Traditionally, the wife owned nothing except the food she was eating. Every property, every capital asset was owned by the man. That's why a woman could not even inherit her father. Not that anymore. Today, we are financial one. Many marriages are in trouble because of this and misunderstanding of the concept, where you think the man is the only one that owns. You keep your money separate. It's not my topic today. I think you discuss elsewhere. And you get into trouble. You must come to where you don't own your wife. You co-own everything. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you should not allow in your wedding process, and even later, a ceremony where blood is poured. No. Blessings from God cannot be involved in slaughtering. And I think that will be very, very important for you to understand. I realize my time has gone. I just want to summarize that point by looking at Acts 15:20. The book of Acts chapter 15 is a discussion by the apostles in a conference that is called Jerusalem Conference, where they were asking the question, the Gentiles, do they have to stop their traditions in order to copy the Jewish ones? After a big debate, they said no. Neither the Gentile customs or the Jewish ones can save anyone. We are saved by the blood of Jesus. So Gentiles can continue following their customs. But a few customs have been stopped. In other words, continue with the Luya customs. But there are certain Luya customs that must be stopped. Which ones? Any custom, Acts 15 verse 20 says, abstain from food polluted by idols. Any custom that is worship and is not worship of God must be stopped. Any custom. How do you know a custom is a pollution by idols? When there is a belief about it and it's not a biblical belief. When you are talking about what ancestors said, and so you are doing a ceremony in order to please the ancestors, that is what we call ancestral worship. You can't do any custom that has to do with that. Number 2, any custom that involves immorality. Number 3, any custom that involves slaughtering in strange ways, like strangling animals. But finally, they summarize it. Any custom that involves blood must be stopped. Have you noticed what 1 Corinthians 10:20 says? No, but the sacrifices of pagans, that means the sacrifice of Kikuyus, the sacrifice of Mijikeda, any killing of a chicken or whatever, any traditional custom that involves shedding of blood, Paul concluded, it's an offering to demons, not to God. And I don't want you to be participants with the demons. Quite a bad summary. All our traditions that have to do with the blood are all summarized as participation with the demons. The disciples took that stand because of Leviticus 17:11, which says that the life of a creature is in the blood. So you need to understand you cannot allow that to happen in your family. You know, Luke chapter 2 also now talks about another custom, about naming. Please look at verse 59. On the 8th day, when they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father Zechariah, his mother spoke up and said, no, he is to be called John. They said to her, there's no one among your relatives who has that name. Several lessons come out of this in child naming. One, there is nothing wrong with naming your parents or your relatives. Nothing wrong with naming them. But two, that you are also free to name in a different way, like happened in John. So, the only naming custom you can refuse is a naming that involves a belief that the person you have named, his spirit is in your child. You can't name, because you want to show clearly your child is not connected with other spirits. But if it's just a way of respect, instead of calling your child Brian, a name you got from the Google, it's not a better name than calling him Onyango, because both are names. And as long as you are not naming in order to have a religious thing. Among the Kikuyus, they name the parents, but they also keep reminding you that it is not the parent, it's just a name of respect. As I was growing up, my mother kept repeating, because I'm named after her father. So she kept saying, you are not my father. Name is just a name. You are not my father. And then I'll be beaten. Obviously, if she believed I was her father, she can't beat me. And she kept reminding me, I'm not her father, it's just a name. And that is something that you need to understand. But if there is a belief that shows there is connection, then that is something you need to deal with. So what are we saying? We are saying that customs are okay, but only customs that are not connected to a belief system other than a biblical belief system. Let me give examples now. The Kambas have something in their wedding process called indeo. The Kikuyus have something they call gurario. Gurario is the Gikoyo wedding. Once you did gurario, the girl was yours now. Gurario was a confirmation of the family of the girl. They have accepted your dowry, and the spirits have accepted. That's why you did gurario. Gurario in Kikuyu is coming from the word kogurara. Kogurara means to shed blood. No agurara. Did blood come out? So you cannot do gurario without blood, because the word, it means blood. Gurario. So you can't do a gurario. So you cannot have a Kikuyu wedding without sacrifice. In the process of negotiations, you must go to that home and blood must be poured. If you want to know that it's not just an innocent custom, whether among the Luyas or Luos, when you go for your wedding process, refuse to sacrifice. Whenever they require meat, buy the meat in the butchery. They will be very unhappy. But it was not meat they were after. They were after satisfying the spirits of the dead. It's ancestral worship. And those are things you cannot allow to happen. And that's why I'm saying, even if meat from a butchery is more expensive, buy it in a butchery in the process, so that you are not mistaken and gotten involved in because obviously they will do it without involving you. They will get you, give us the goat, then they will do the necessary thing, pour the blood, and you are the one who bought the goat. So why not buy the meat, even if it's more expensive, so that you don't get involved? You can see the scriptures are clear. You cannot be involved in a custom that involves blood. I'm going towards finishing so that we have time to discuss. From what I have said, you can see that if you have a Christian marriage, you cannot have in-law issues. You know, one of the things that any man would dread is to ever have to make a choice between the two powerful women in his life. Your mother is a very powerful woman. Your wife is very powerful. If you are in a traditional marriage, it's a very easy thing. You need to understand that if your wife and your mother collide, it is not even debate about it. Your wife must leave. There's no, when you call the elders, they don't even have a debate. That's why a woman had to be very careful with her mother-in-law and obey her. Because if she doesn't obey her and her mother-in-law is unhappy, she's the one who will go. In a Christian marriage, again, if your wife and your mother collide, the Bible So the Bible instruction is very clear. For this reason, a man will leave. So if there is a correlation between your mother and your wife, it is your mother visiting. So what's the solution? It's your mother who leaves. Let me repeat. In a traditional marriage, it's the wife who leaves. In a Christian marriage, it's the mother who leaves. Why? She already has a husband. She goes back to her husband. If there is a correlation between the two. So it's that's why right from before the wedding, you need to be very clear. Are you going for a traditional marriage or a Christian marriage? I have written a book that is by that title, Marriage, Christian or Traditional. You can ask George to tell you where you can get the book. Because I'm trying to say you have to make up your mind very early. Because if it's a traditional marriage, then the mother is a powerful person. If it's a Christian marriage, both are important to you. But if there's a correlation between the two, you can leave your mother's house, because after all, that's not where you live, and continue with your wife. But your wife, if you leave her, you'll be in trouble with God, because divorce is not allowed. And I think that's a very, very important thing to understand. So when you hear there are in-law problems, normally it's because somebody is not acting as a Christian. And I think that will be very, very important to understand. You know, if it is true you have obeyed the scriptures and you have left the home, it means whenever the mother-in-law is visiting, she is a visitor to the home of her son. The owner of the home is not her. She cannot go anywhere in the house. And she needs to be reminded clearly she is a visitor. So she can't go everywhere. She has to go as instructed by her daughter-in-law. So when you see problems, it's because the man of the home is not acting as a Christian. If he's a Christian, he would have told his mother, please understand that this home belongs to my wife. Please cooperate with her. And if you don't cooperate, then obviously it will be very difficult for you to be visiting us. But many men dare not tell their mother that. So what you are calling problems is not in-law problems. It is a husband who does not make stand as her ground. The same thing with the women. If you're having trouble with your mother-in-law as a husband, it's because your wife is not standing her ground to remind her mother that she cannot approach you without passing through her. And I think that's very, 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 very important for that to be sorted out. One of the things that is bringing problems is something and I think my generation is to blame. We are saying that a mother-in-law is a mother-in-law. That is lying to the people. Your mother-in-law will never be your mother-in-law. She is your mother-in-law. Why is she called a mother-in-law? Because she doesn't know you well. If there's a collision between you and your husband, she always side with her son. Why? You are a stranger. She found you an adult. So she can't understand you. But she knows her son when her son was in nappies. That's why the normal rule is, whenever there are in-law issues, the girl should sort out her side and the boy should sort out his side. Because there, even if you say something which could be construed rude, you'll be forgiven. But if a wife said something that can be construed rude in the boy's place, that will be chaos. So that needs to be understood clearly. That we are talking about people from different homes. We are talking about people that then must be. So your in-laws must be respected, must be loved, must be helped. You must create very good relations. But you cannot again become too daring in a critical misunderstanding to start standing your ground. Allow your husband to handle them. Allow your wife to deal with her parents. It is the responsibility of a man to defend his wife against those narratives. The brothers, the cousins, the sisters, defend your wife. Once they know that you love your wife and you are defending her, they will no longer attack her. The same thing with the wife. You must defend your husband before your father and your mother and your sisters and brothers. That will be something very, very important. What about traditional fear of curses? I think we need to come out of that. You cannot call yourself a Christian and continue living under that fear. The book of Galatians tells us that Jesus went to the cross to become our curse. It meant whatever your curse your ancestors had, whatever curse your ancestors gave, it's also nailed on the cross when you surrender yourself to God. So you cannot continue under the fear of curses. I summarize. Christian marriage begins openly. That's why you cannot start a marriage without a wedding. A wedding doesn't have to involve money or food, but you require a representative of God, we call a pastor, joining you together. And that's why it's important. It's an open. But the word here used is, for this reason, a man shall leave. How shall I know you have left? How will your parents know you have left? It is that process of confirming to your parents you are no longer part of your marriage, of that home. That's what we call a wedding. If you live without them understanding, without a wedding, you will create a collision. A Christian marriage has transparency. I've talked about that. Again, it is not traditional. You don't talk to women openly. There are things you only tell men. But in a Christian marriage, your brother should not know as much as your wife knows about your investments, about there is no secret. You are supposed to be both naked before your wife. You can see the two will be different. In a Christian marriage, it is an exclusive union. You cannot get involved other people. That's why polygamy can never be involved. Remember what we read in Genesis 2. For this reason, a man lives, not many men, his father and mother, and is united to his wife, not his wives. Polygamy is out of question, just like adultery is out of question. And also, Christian marriage is something voluntary. And Christian marriage, whereas we said earlier, in a traditional marriage, people can tell you who you are going to marry. A Christian marriage is therefore monogamous, lifelong union of flesh and spirit. And it's very important to understand marriage does not belong to death, does not go beyond death. Don't tell your husband. Don't keep asking your wife, if I die, what will you do? That's none of your business. You'll be in heaven enjoying God's presence. What she does is irrelevant. Don't try to extend your marriage beyond your death. Don't ask your husband, what will you do if I die? Your marriage is a physical thing that is for the time being. That's why you can't marry a girl, put her in Kisumu, and you stay in Mombasa. Marriage is physical. You need to stay together. I know that topic will be covered. But in traditional marriage, you can have a wife for every town you visit. That's not Christian marriage. The other thing I'm sure you will cover is that it's a permanent union. There is no possibility of divorce. And I think sorry, I've taken a little longer than I hoped. But let's allow the question time now.